Today, we're going to help you and your whole table build a fantasy world for your next campaign. Hey guys, Bobby here from the GM table, and I'm trying something different. This is actually going to be one of 3 videos over the next few weeks where I'm going to go over this master list of questions I used in my most recent campaign. Now, why over 3 videos? Because we're going to break it into chunks for different themes and kind of sections of what they handle, as well as not just here's what the questions are, but why these questions in particular. Now, with video 1, I'm also going to explain why this method. Basically, I took this method from Kids on Bikes and Kids on Brooms, where I have a list of questions. I don't come to session 0 with any campaign, any setting, any of that. I know what the playable races are, because that'll affect the questions. We're going to get into that. And that's about it. Then with these questions, we go around the table, and I ask one player a question, and then the player next to them, I ask the next question, and so on and so forth. This list is made for 5 players. We had one no-show, and another one of our players I knew a few days ahead of time was sick with shingles, as well as because of the shingles ended up really behind in his work. So wasn't there. So we only had 3 players there. So I answered a question. We left the 5th question open where I just sent it to the sick player because the no-show player, no-show, didn't let us know ahead of time. It's session 0. You're out. Like, just no time for that right now. But with that, let's get into the questions. The first question on the map you might think is, what is the name of the kingdom or what is the name of the country? Those questions aren't even on here. When they come up, I, as a GM, I can just make up names for that because honestly, those aren't nearly as important for this game. This is a low-level fantasy game. This one isn't using D&D, but all these questions would work for D&D. Instead, question 1 is, what is the name of the main road, the main trade road, the main road that connects most of the towns and villages? This road is likely going to be a road your players are going to use a lot if they're traveling. This is actually going to come up a heck of a lot more if you're playing local level fantasy, which most low level fantasy games are. It's going to come up a lot more than caring about what the name of the kingdom is for the first 10 to 12 sessions. After that, the next few questions all kind of fall into the same thing of these are the things that are going to be immediately important in session 1 and probably the next few sessions. What is the name of the local river? Because every town is going to be near some kind of water or water source. Now, you could have outliers where there's actually a well and stuff like that. But you want to make it simple? Put a river there. If you want it to be a really big thing, give them a lake or a shore with a coast to an ocean or sea or whatever. But river keeps it easy, and it still gives them a waterway that they could cross and have even more land to travel beyond. Obviously, this ignores ship-based games and stuff like that. That's its own genre, guys. After that, the one that I feel is one of the most obvious of these questions is, what's the name of the local forest? Every good local-based fantasy game has to have some kind of haunted forest or fey forest or something like that. The name of the forest can tell you a lot of stuff. If one of your players calls it Witchwood, make a witch. Done. If they call it the Enchanted Forest, well, you got an idea of the kind of theme and feeling they're going for in the game. And these questions and how they answer them also give a good job of informing you as the GM the tone and mood before we even get into the deep stuff that they're looking to make this campaign. With this, I'm going to take a little break from the questions and bring up the fact of, again, why do I do this? Well, honestly, the names of these things can be interchangeable, but having your players name the stuff is going to give them a level of investment and a level of care for the world that you're just not going to be able to recreate other ways. You can make a really cool world and they can be invested. I'm not saying they won't, but when they go to a place they named, they're going to care more. It's how things work. You helped build it. You have a emotional and psychological investment in the world, not just the game. Then, after the forest, you have a couple easy ones as well. Was the name of a well-known mountain? The mountain you don't need to have right next to them. Mountains you can see from a great distance away. So you just get to be a mountain everybody knows about. name it. And typically we're probably going to be putting a monster or a villain there. And then finally, what is the name of the largest city in the region or kingdom or stuff like that? This location does not need to be anywhere near you. Okay, this is like your capital city. And this also gives you a hub where the really important things that are happening that characters can aspire to go do, hear about guild leaders and nobles and all that stuff. You put it all in this city they named. And maybe they'll get a quest to go there. But it kind of leaves a little bit of breadcrumbs to bigger things and builds a bigger world without you actually having to build it all yourself. So after those questions, we go into, there's lumps of questions in here, which is the same question over and over, because in these, you ask everyone at the table the same question, and then they all give their own answer. How do we populate out this map? Have everyone at the table give a name of a town. Done. Done. You have 4 players. You have at least 4 villages now to name. You have 5 players, you have 5 villages. It scales with the size of the group, which is fine because smaller groups will likely not be traveling as far because they're not as survivable. It's this economy of scale that works really well. Okay, so we have the names of the main core landmarks. We have the name of the capital, which is either a landmark nearby or far away. We have an entire collection of villages. Honestly, you have your map. Okay, you can put it on paper with an actual map. You can get a visual for it, but the things in the map that matter for the town and society and going from place to place where they're going to be interacting, buying, selling, going to inns, stuff like that, you have more than enough to get started, and your players wrote it all for you. Now, along with that, we're going to jump to another section, which is actually my last questions, but it fits within the theming here of let's just get the baseline world. This is before we get into races. That's going to be next week. This is before we get into magic and gods. That's going to be week 3. Right now, we're going to get into the rumors. We already did one question where everyone gets asked the same question. There's 2 more questions. Each of them, everyone gets asked. The first is, what is something everyone knows? You go around the table and everyone gets to add something. This adds a fact to the world. The thing I love about the something everyone knows is this could be a fact everyone knows, or this could be something everyone knows, which might not actually be true. It might be a superstition or a legend that everybody thinks is true. You don't have the players determine whether or not it's true. They live in the world, and the people in the world all assume it to be true. You as the GM then get to decide what is and isn't true. I wouldn't make everything not true. Pick 1, maybe 2 things that actually aren't true. The rest are. And even then, the whole world acts as if all of them are true. This question allows your players to put input into the world that could be super precise and specific, could be big, sweeping things that affect everything. Now, granted, if it's something that the whole rest of the group is like, that screws up the whole game, it's a conversation. And yeah, be like, let's work on something else because nobody else here is down with that. That's going to make the game suck. I mean, anytime you're doing collaborative storytelling, collaborative world building, there's a level of trust. So if one person thinks they're funny and makes it into a joke that no one else enjoys, I mean, that's just like if they did something in the game and it made everyone else upset. Same difference. You're turning game prep into its own game. The second question is almost the same, but a little different. This one I actually think I like even more than the everyone else knows. It's, what is one thing few people know to be true? This is always true. I even let my players know. This is not the one where it turns out, haha, you thought it was true, everybody thought it was true, it's actually a lie, and we get to reveal it. No, on this one, this is a fact. But the fact very few people know. Whichever player answers a question, now granted, they all get asked the same question, but whichever player gives an answer, their character knows this thing. Okay? Works really well for that. So every character gets to know at least one secret. However, everyone at the table already knows it because we answer them collectively. If you want it to be a secret, and you're around a physical table or you want to do it through messages, you can have them secretly send these messages in as well. So they know what they answered and no one else does. You could do it that way. But this lets the players feel like they have information that the average person doesn't. We're dealing with heroes. This works really, really well. It, again, lets them put input in, and now they get to put in secrets into the world. But as a GM, especially once we delve deeper into this, it may be some later videos if this series works out, go into how you take those answers and turn them into hooks, turn them into adventures, turn them into problems for your characters. But that's it for this week. Next week, we're going to go into how your players get to inform your world, how all the different races work and interact in a very simple way, as well as maybe trick them into making their own villains. With that, we'll catch you next week. Bye.